Relax and you will manifest everything you want. Have you ever felt this way? The harder you try, the more it feels like everything is slipping through your fingers. You make plans. You follow every step. You try to control every detail. But the results always seem to go to someone else, someone who doesn't even seem to try as hard. And you're exhausted from carrying everything on your shoulders. And the worst part is you don't dare to stop. In your mind, a toxic belief keeps echoing. If I don't control everything, it will all fall apart. But what if the truth is the exact opposite? What if I told you the tighter you grip, the more life resists you? The more you let go, the more everything you genuinely want finds its way to you. Sounds contradictory. We live in a world that worships effort, speed, and control. We're taught that we'll never get what we want if we don't force things into place. But the Stoic philosophers taught the opposite. The greatest thinkers, from Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius to the masters of modern psychology, all agree true power doesn't come from control. It comes from the ability to relax and align with the flow. In this video, you're about to discover what most people never dare to believe. That relaxing isn't giving up. It's how you shape your destiny. That letting go doesn't make you weak. It turns you into a magnet for everything that was meant for you. And if you stay with me through the end of this journey, you'll realize everything you are chasing is already chasing you. You've just been too busy running to notice it standing there waiting. But don't just listen to the theory. To feel this, I want to tell you a story that's real and hits close. A man who lived just like you. He tried to control everything. He pushed himself to the edge until one day it all broke, and he uncovered a truth that changed his life forever. Let me tell you the story of Luke, and maybe you'll see yourself in it. Luke was the classic picture of American success. 34 years old, living in New York, his office on the 22nd floor of a glass building filled with light. Every morning he walked into the office with a sugar-free latte in one hand, a smartwatch on his left wrist, and a smile that most mistook for confidence, but was actually a defense mechanism. He was a creative director at a major agency. His calendar was booked down to the minute. No vacations, no weekends. His schedule was a maze of meetings, KPIs, pitch decks, and long nights with nothing but slide decks and cold coffee to keep him company. Luke wasn't lazy. He was the type who would sacrifice sleep, health, and personal relationships to maintain what he called control over life. In his mind, everything had to be managed. His employees had to hit deadlines to the minute. Every presentation had to be perfect down to the detail. Every project needed results. Specific, clear, fast. He didn't believe in uncertainty. He didn't believe in natural flow. To Luke, good things only came when you gripped the wheel tight. So he was always tense, not just at work, but in his mind. There was always a voice in his head whispering, if you're not paying close attention, it'll all collapse. One moment of relaxing and you'll fail. He believed only absolute control could keep him standing. So he never allowed himself to loosen up, not even a little. And because of that, he slowly lost himself. Even as he kept achieving, making money, and gaining status, Luke felt empty. The work no longer sparked joy. Every morning felt like a battle, not to win, but to survive. On the outside, it looked like Luke was rising, but inside, he was sliding down fast. He was living as if life were a performance, and he was both the director and the exhausted victim of his script. No one saw it. Only he knew, late at night alone, the real cost of trying to control everything. And then, life hit back. No warning, no time to prepare. And it shattered everything he thought was solid. Everything collapsed on a Tuesday morning. Luke had just pulled an all-nighter. He passed out at 4:30 a.m. while double-checking the most important pitch of the year, a $2.5 million campaign for the agency's biggest client at 9:00 a.m. The meeting began. Luke presented everything according to plan. Perfect slides, perfect words, perfect tone. He was sure he had everything under control. And then the client stood up and said no. No criticism, no feedback, just one cold sentence. This doesn't feel aligned. We'll go another direction. The silence in that room hurt more than any harsh word. Everyone turned to look at Luke. A few frowns, a few eyes filled with blame. But the heaviest stare, came from inside himself. He couldn't understand what had just happened. He had done everything right. He had prepared until he was drained, and still, the result was nothing. Over the next few weeks, everything unraveled. The client pulled out. The company cut budgets. Luke's boss told him bluntly, "We can't keep a creative director who's good at forcing things but can't create real flow." That was the first time Luke had ever heard someone say flow with complete seriousness. And strangely, it haunted him. At the same time, his relationship started to crack. His girlfriend, who had stood by him for 3 years, left with one final message: "You love your work, but you don't know how to love a human being." That's when Luke lost all control, not because he stopped trying, but because everything he had tried to control had vanished. He started to fall into silence. Not the kind of silence that gives up, but the type filled with quiet doubt. Silence that asks, "Have I been wrong?" from the very beginning. And then something happened. Something that had never happened before. He decided to try relaxing. Not the spa relaxing, not a cocktail on the beach kind of relaxing, but a real letting go from within. After 3 weeks of drifting in the quiet of a man who had lost direction, Luke did something even he didn't expect. He turned off all notifications on his phone. Emails silent, Slack muted, Google Calendar blank. No planning, no to-do list, no reminders telling him to take action now. And for the first time in 8 years, Luke woke up without an alarm. When his eyes opened, there was no panic about being late, just soft light coming through the window and a strange stillness inside his mind. He made himself a black coffee and sat on the balcony. No podcasts, no news, no checklists, just sitting, watching, breathing. And then something strange happened. His mind started to empty, but in a peaceful way. No voice attacking him. No inner pressure to do something now. Just the present moment. He didn't call it meditation. He didn't label it self-care. He called it let it be. At that moment, for the first time in years, Luke felt life flowing through him without force pushing or control. He began rereading old pages of Marcus Aurelius, the ones he had once highlighted but never truly felt. One quote made him pause longer than the rest. "If you seek tranquility, do less, or more accurately, do what's essential, and do it with less fuss." Marcus Aurelius. Luke set the book down and smiled. Not the kind of smile that says, "I've won," but the smile of a man who just realized he had been running in the wrong direction for years. That morning, he didn't do anything significant. He didn't decide to change his life. He didn't make a new plan. But something inside shifted. Not a dramatic turning point, but a small crack in his deeply rooted control system. And through that crack, the light finally came in. From one small action, a chain reaction began. When Luke stopped pushing, the flow started carrying him to places that force could never reach. That peaceful morning wasn't just a quiet moment, it was the beginning of a ripple effect he never expected. He no longer forced himself to relax as if it were a new goal. Instead, he allowed letting go to guide him gently and slowly. A few days later, while walking through the park near his home, Luke paused at a corner he'd never noticed in 6 years of living there. An older man sat drawing with charcoal on a worn-out sketchbook, not caring who walked by, not promoting anything, just sitting there, enjoying every stroke. Luke stopped and sat on a nearby bench. No journaling, no to-do list. No thoughts like, "Is this time productive?" Just sitting, watching, being. And in those 15 minutes, he felt something he had lost for too long presence. From that moment, Luke's mind started shifting. Creative ideas, once squeezed out under pressure-filled brainstorming, now began to surface naturally. He came up with a new concept for a previously rejected campaign, but this time, instead of forcing it to be perfect, he just wrote it out of inspiration. No editing, no control, just flow. When he sent the draft to a trusted colleague, she replied within 10 minutes. "This is exactly what the client wanted. It feels real, not forced." It wasn't just work that changed, his relationships did too. Luke started calling his mom every morning, not out of duty, but because he wanted to. He began slowing down when friends opened up, not rushing to give advice, not trying to fix, just listening. And then something remarkable happened. Relationships felt lighter, conversations felt more honest, and people around him began to relax in his presence. One day, Luke was invited back to the agency to consult on a new project, not as a director, just someone to share perspective. In the past, he would have rejected it instantly because it came with less power. But this time he said yes, not for status, but because it felt right. He walked into the same boardroom where he once faced the harshest blow of his career. But now he sat with a completely different energy. He didn't speak much, no performance, just shared. And in that quiet, the whole room listened. One of the younger team members said afterwards, "You didn't say much, but something about you just made things clearer." Luke smiled softly because he understood where real power comes from for the first time, not from gripping everything tightly, but from releasing at the right moment and allowing things to come to you. When he let go, ideas came, people came, opportunities came. But strangely, he no longer craved to grab them. He received them calmly, without rush, without pressure. Because now Luke understood life doesn't reward those who hold on too tight. It blesses those who learn to move in rhythm. One October afternoon, Luke sat on his usual balcony chair with a warm cup of tea. The air was crisp, the wind soft, and his mind was finally still. No KPI charts, no countdowns, no checklist to complete by 5 p.m. He sat watching the sunset and finally understood what he had missed for many years. It was never effort he lacked, it was trust. He used to believe that success required total control. He had to push harder, do more than others, always be in fight mode, to keep his place and reach his goals. But that only made sense in a world where people believe they're alone, where life is random and harsh. Now he understood something deeper. Life is not against you. It just asks you to live in rhythm with it. When you start to relax, it doesn't mean you're lazy or giving up. It means you're pausing to reconnect with yourself. You begin to realize there are things you can't control and don't need to. You don't need to grip everything or chase success like it's running from you. The truth is, what's meant for you will find you once you stop getting in the way. And the most significant barrier is your tension, worry, and desperate need for things to go your way. Luke was no longer the man who tried to control everything, but failed to control himself. Now he can step back, observe, and trust the process, not because he's enlightened, but because he lived it. He fell. He let go, and the flow still carried him further than before. And in that surrender, everything began to manifest naturally. Creative ideas, new relationships, and perfect timing didn't come from pressure. They went from the calm energy he started to radiate. And if you're wondering right now, how can I reach that state? How do I relax and let the right things come to me? You're not alone. Because this isn't just an inspiring story. It's a life principle that Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca repeated repeatedly. Let go of control to gain control over yourself. And right after this, you'll discover 7 practical habits to help you relax intentionally, not passively. This isn't about waiting for fate. It's about shifting your energy to align with life and attract everything you deserve. Let's begin with habit 1. Stop resisting the flow and start listening to it. Are you ready? Habit 1. Don't fight the flow. Have you ever tried to push against a river? That's precisely what most people do with their lives, not in the physical world, but in their minds. They fight time, they fight change, they fight uncertainty. Every morning they wake up with the mindset that life is something to conquer, control, and force into a direction. But the harder they try, the more drained they feel. The tighter they grip, the more everything slips away. Just like Luke, the man we met earlier, who was always working nonstop, always sticking to the plan, always trying to control every little thing in his life. He believed that everything would fall into place if he did enough, fast enough, and worked hard enough. But in the end, the only thing he gained was burnout, exhaustion, and the quiet desperation of having given everything with nothing left to give. One morning when everything fell apart, Luke sat silently in his room, too tired to resist. And something strange happened. He did nothing, and yet something inside him started to move. No more struggle, no more tension, no more resistance, and from that very moment, life began to meet him halfway. This is the first habit and maybe the root of all change. Don't fight the flow. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The obstacle in the path becomes the path." This means that the very thing you're trying to avoid might be what you must face. But when you resist it, you build a wall. And that wall blocks not only the challenge, but also the growth and clarity that come with it. Let's look at a real-life example. Mariah, a woman who spent years trying to land a job at a top company. She rewrote her resume dozens of times, attended networking events, invested in courses, and hired a career coach. But all she got were rejection emails. Each one felt like a slap in the face until she let go one day after the 5th rejection. "I didn't give up, but I let go in the right way." She realized maybe she was forcing something that wasn't ready or wasn't meant for her at all. So she started freelancing for smaller companies. And something strange happened. She felt happier, more creative, more aligned with her values. And 6 months later, that company, the one that once rejected her, called and offered her a job. But not the old position, a better one, a new role that hadn't even existed before. So what changed? She didn't change her goal. She altered the energy she was putting into it. Seneca once wrote, "Fate leads the willing, but drags the unwilling." When you stop resisting, you stop being dragged through life. You start flowing, not drifting, but aligning. You're no longer chasing the future, you're inviting it through your calm, grounded presence. And that only happens when you pause, let go, and trust. Trust the process. Trust that delays might be protection. Trust that closed doors might be keeping you from the wrong room. Trust that if you slow down, life might finally walk with you instead of making you run alone. So pause for a moment, ask yourself, what in my life am I trying to force? What am I chasing so hard? It's starting to feel unnatural. And if I allowed myself to loosen my grip just a little today, might I see a different path that's gentler, more aligned? And once you learn not to fight the flow, a new challenge will arise. It's this: what do you say to yourself in the quiet moments of waiting? Because many people don't fail from action. They fail from the negative whispers they tell themselves in silence. And that is the next habit you need to master if you truly want to manifest the life you deserve. Habit 2, choose your words to feed your inner world. Something more dangerous than outside pressure is the words you say to yourself when no one else is listening. When life slows down, your efforts don't bring results right away. And when you're sitting in the stillness, the voice in your head gets the loudest. And most of us, instead of encouraging ourselves, become our own harshest critics. I'm wasting time. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve that. Those sentences don't come from the outside, they come from you. This second habit matters greatly. You must choose how you speak to yourself daily. Ava's story makes this clear. She's a talented interior designer, but keeps getting passed over for big projects. She had the skills, but a familiar voice echoed every time she got rejected. "I'm not as creative as the others." That line became a background program running constantly. No matter how hard she worked on the outside, she believed she wasn't worthy. Every compliment felt fake. Every opportunity scared her because she feared she'd mess it up. Until one day a close friend asked her, if you were Ava's manager, would you trust her with a project? Ava laughed and said, "Of course, she's excellent." Her friend replied, "Then why do you keep saying the opposite to her in your head?" That question woke Ava up. And from that day, she began a new journey, not to learn more skills, but to learn a new way of speaking to herself. Epictetus once said, "It's not events that disturb us, but our interpretation of them." But the truth is, how we interpret starts with how we speak. Words repeated become beliefs. Beliefs shape habits, and habits build your life. So if you keep repeating negative self-talk even when opportunity knocks, you won't recognize it. You'll quietly sabotage yourself. You don't need to shout affirmations into a mirror every morning. Just stop speaking to yourself like you're the enemy. That alone is a significant shift. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "We become what we repeatedly think." Now imagine if you told yourself every morning, "I'm learning, I'm improving, everything is arriving at the right time." These words aren't meant to trick you, but to protect your inner space from invisible wars. Like a garden, weeds will grow independently if you don't plant good seeds. Your mind is no different. So from today on, treat your words like nutrition. Don't let poison in. When you're waiting for something to happen, when results aren't visible, and when everything feels slow, be most careful with what you say in your head. That's when you're reprogramming your future without even knowing it. And when you change your internal language, your outer energy shifts. Every conversation, every gesture, every look, you carry yourself differently. A calm person who doesn't panic when success is delayed, who doesn't curse themselves when things fail, that's someone who's found the root of inner freedom. But even that isn't enough. Because even if you stop resisting, even if you speak to yourself with kindness, there's still one more essential ingredient: patience. Life doesn't show up just because you ask. It shows up when you're ready. And that brings us to habit 3, learning to wait for the right moment without losing your peace. Habit 3, patience. Waiting for the right moment without losing yourself. There's a kind of pressure that no one sees, but many people live with it daily. The pressure to achieve something as soon as possible. You look at social media and see others succeeding at 25, building a house at 30, earning 6 figures just a few years into their careers, and suddenly you ask yourself, am I falling behind? So you try to speed up. You rush. You jump into every opportunity even if you're not ready. You chase every trend even if it goes against your values. But the faster you move, the more life seems to run away. And the saddest part is this: you start to believe you're not allowed to feel at peace until you've achieved that thing. Habit 3 directly responds to that false belief: be patient, not passive. Wait, but don't forget who you are while waiting. Think of a seed. It can't scream for spring to come early. It can't dig itself out of the dirt or force sunlight to arrive. All it can do is quietly grow beneath the surface. Invisible but not meaningless. Just because something isn't seen doesn't mean it isn't happening. Take Ethan, for example, a man nearing 40 who spent more than a decade trying to build his own business. He switched industries, partnered, and broke up with co-founders and knocked on dozens of investors' doors. But for 10 straight years, nothing took off. After every failure, he asked himself, am I on the wrong path? But he didn't give up. He didn't force success to happen. Instead, he focused inward, reading, more training his body, learning new skills, meditating every morning. He realized something powerful: when you don't yet see results, it's not the time to quit. It's the time to strengthen your foundation. Seneca once said, time reveals all things. Some things, when rushed, move further away. True fulfillment doesn't come from getting something. It comes from becoming someone worthy of receiving it. And sometimes it's not that the timing is late, you arrive too early. You needed time to learn what needed to be learned, to release what needed to be released, to go through what was necessary. Like a storm at sea, you'll get crushed if you set sail too soon. But if you wait for the right moment, you can go much farther without being wrecked by the wind. Ask yourself, how many opportunities have I missed because I rushed? How many decisions have I forced before I had clarity, only to regret them later? How many times has anxiety flooded my mind? Not because life failed me, but because it didn't happen by my deadline. These aren't your failures. They're symptoms of a world that teaches you to rush race and constantly prove yourself. But you don't have to live that way. You're allowed to move slower and still move with confidence. You can act daily without demanding instant results. Because if you're planting a good seed, building the proper habits, and walking a path that aligns with your values, no matter how long it takes, it will bloom. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, wait for the fruit to fall when it's ripe, don't rush it. You can write down your goals. You can plan your actions. But don't sacrifice the present to chase a future that hasn't arrived. Happiness isn't about how fast you're going. It's about knowing where you're going and whether you're at peace with each step. And that patience, the calm in a culture obsessed with urgency, creates a quiet strength. Outcomes don't control the patient person. They move from values, not desperation. And they become a grounding presence in a world full of frantic motion. But to become that person, you need to master one more essential skill: inner consistency, even when the outside world is in chaos. Habit 4, stay consistent with your inner self no matter what's happening outside. It's not hard to stay calm when life is going your way. It's not hard to feel joyful when work is smooth, your health is solid, and your relationships are harmonious. But what happens when everything falls apart at once, when finances tighten? Loved ones let you down and your best efforts bring no visible results. Most of us let our environment shape our emotions in such moments, and emotions drive actions. And actions shape your entire state of being. This 4th habit is about a more profound transformation, maintaining internal consistency despite external chaos. It's not about pretending to be positive, but becoming a system that functions independently of the world's turbulence. Think back to the last time you lost your composure. It could be an email rejecting your proposal. a sarcastic comment from a coworker, a flat tire that made you late. These seemingly minor events can ruin your entire day if your reactions become automatic. A person who can't manage their inner response becomes a slave to every outer disturbance. But someone who understands that emotions are just temporary outcomes of perspective learns how to pause and choose differently. They don't get swept away by unconscious emotion. They observe it, understand it, and respond with intention. Epictetus once said, "We cannot control what happens to us, but we can always control how we respond." Real strength doesn't mean you never get hurt. It means you don't let that pain define who you are. A friend of mine, Michael, faced a significant financial collapse after the pandemic. Every contract was canceled, income dropped to zero, and his savings could only support him for a few months. But instead of panicking, he spent an entire week doing just one thing: journaling. Every morning he wrote down his fears, plans, and the core values he refused to abandon. He told me, "If I lose my mind, every plan becomes pointless." And he was right. His inner consistency became the foundation for rebuilding his life. Not with one big leap, but through steady daily actions, no matter how he felt. We live in an era where likes, bad news, impossible standards, and endless comparisons hijack emotions. Without an inner anchor, you drift. You become a copy of what others expect you to be. But people who live in alignment with themselves are different. They know who they are. They know what matters. They don't let the environment decide their worth. They don't let one bad day destroy their entire week. They don't let one rejection erase their self-belief. They stand firm because their inner world doesn't wobble with every outside wave. If you want to be that person, start with the small things. Respond to delays with a deep breath. Receive criticism with a question, not defensiveness. Take one silent minute before every significant decision. Slowly, you'll build an inner system that doesn't depend on external stability. But this takes daily practice. No one is born calm. Every bit of composure is built through habit. And one of the most powerful habits is learning to slow down just enough to see where you're going. Not to escape, but to make sure you're not racing in the wrong direction. And that prepares you for the next habit, focusing your energy only on what truly matters, instead of scattering it across everything that drives you mad. Habit 5. Focus on what matters. Don't let a scattered mind ruin your life. The world doesn't lack talent. It doesn't lack ambition. But it's full of lost people, not because they lack ability, but because their energy leaks into things that don't matter. These days, your attention can be pulled in 100 directions before breakfast, texts, emails, social media drama, opinions, deadlines, and the constant feeling of being behind. But here's the truth: no one can gain clarity in a constantly chaotic life. And if you don't dare to choose what truly matters to you, this world will choose for you. There's a simple truth most people hide. Your time is not renewable, your attention is not infinite, and your energy is limited. Whenever you click on a random video to kill time, you tell your brain, "This matters more than my dream." Whenever you spend an hour arguing with someone who doesn't get you, you're trading time for ego. Every time you're distracted by other people's noise, you abandon the life quietly waiting for you to build it. Seneca once wrote, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." The real danger isn't just lost time, it's not knowing where that time is going. I once had a friend, Alex, who was always busy, packed schedule, phone buzzing, nonstop meetings back to back. But 5 years later, over coffee, he told me, "I was moving fast, just in the wrong direction." He woke up early and worked hard, but it was all to meet someone else's expectations. He never stopped to ask, "What truly matters to me?" That question can change your life. What matters so profoundly to me that I'm willing to say no to everything else? A relationship, a simple lifestyle, a meaningful career, a peaceful mind. You can't focus on everything and everything. And the more you try to hold on to, the less deeply you'll go into anything. Like sunlight spread out, it only warms, but concentrated, it can ignite. Focus doesn't come from cutting everything out in a dramatic way. It comes from placing your attention with intention. In the morning, you choose to read instead of scrolling. During the day, you decide to do what matters instead of reacting to every little thing. At night, you select stillness over chasing more of what drains you. And every time you do, you rebuild a life with structure where everything you do has a reason. Focus is the behavior of someone who is fully awake, the kind of person Epictetus described as the one who realizes he is steering the ship, not sitting in the passenger seat of someone else's life. And through focus, you discover this life doesn't demand that you do everything, it just asks that you do the right things at the right time with your full presence. Greatness doesn't come from being constantly busy, it comes from knowing what's truly worth devoting your life to. And if you've ever felt overwhelmed, scattered, or lost, that doesn't mean you're broken. It just means it's time to stop and begin curating your life again. Focus is not a skill, it's a form of liberation. You're no longer easily manipulated when you know what you're living for. And that leads us to one of the most powerful habits of all, the foundation of every lasting transformation, cultivating self-discipline so you can stay aligned even when no one is watching. Habit 6, build self-discipline. Do the right thing even when no one is watching. There's a truth every adult eventually faces. No one will follow you around reminding you what to do every day. No one will constantly check if you're doing it right, if you're making progress, or if you've quietly given up. After a certain age, life stops rewarding visible effort and starts measuring you by how well you keep your word to yourself when no one's looking. And that's where inner discipline begins. Discipline isn't about force. It's the intentional choice to stay loyal to what you've committed to, even when your mood shifts, your motivation disappears, and no one's clapping for you. A person without discipline lives by impulse. They do it when it feels good and quit when it doesn't. But a disciplined person trusts the process, not in fleeting emotions. They understand that every solid part of life, money, health, career, relationships, requires a foundation of steady right and consistent action. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Get up, it's time to do what you were made for as a human being." That's not a command to hustle harder. It's a reminder every day it is a chance to live in alignment with the strength that already exists inside you. Not because someone's watching, not for praise, not for perfection, but you deserve a life built on order, character, and depth. I once met an older man who lived alone in a small house in the countryside. No one knew his name. He had no social media. He didn't talk much. But every morning he woke up at 5 a.m., exercised, tended his garden, cooked his meals, and read books. When I asked why he lived with such discipline when no one seemed to care, he smiled and said, "Because I don't need to prove anything to anyone, I just don't want to break promises to myself." That sentence stayed with me for years, and every time I feel like giving up, I remember him. You can build discipline from the smallest actions. Make your bed every morning, drink enough water, stop scrolling after 10 minutes, and write down what you know needs to be done. Don't wait for motivation to begin. Begin, and motivation will follow. And here's the strange beauty of it. When you live with discipline, you start believing in yourself, not from empty affirmations, but from the absolute proof that you keep your word. In this chaotic world, the disciplined are the truly free, because they're not dragged around by emotion, temptation, or outside pressure. They steer themselves, which is the highest power of a mature mind. And once you've built discipline, you're ready to nurture something even more rare: trust in the natural flow of life. Not blind trust, but the kind built through patience, right action, and intelligent surrender. Habit 7. Trust the natural flow. Be patient, let go, and allow things to arrive in their own time. There's a person who constantly feels like they're falling behind. They see someone succeed earlier. They see others as happier. They see themselves still stuck despite trying so hard. And in that rush, they start forcing themselves to achieve something faster, louder, more. But the more they push, the further they drift from themselves. Because here's a more profound truth. Everything that arrives at the right time is beautiful. But when you pull, rush, and force it falls apart before it even belongs to you. Stoic philosophy never told you to be passive or give up, but it teaches something far more powerful. Take full action, then release the outcome. You plant the seed, care for the soil, and water it, but you cannot control when the sprout will break through. Seneca wrote him, "Part of the happiness you seek comes from letting go of what you cannot control." And outcomes are one of those things. I once had an incredibly talented friend. He was so gifted that everyone around him said, "You'll make it big very soon." But instead of patiently sharpening his skills and building a solid foundation, he rushed. He spent on ads. He ran loud campaigns. He tried to get noticed, and he succeeded for a few months. Then it all collapsed because there was nothing solid beneath. He told me later, "I wasn't wrong for trying. I was wrong for not trusting that success when it comes at the right time is the only kind that truly stays." People who trust the natural flow are not sitting around waiting for luck. They act with intention, then accept what doesn't belong to them. They don't fear missing out because they know what's right won't skip those who are ready. They don't chase the spotlight because they believe the real light shines from within. When you release control, it's not weakness, it's freedom. When you're patient, you're not slow building something that lasts. And when you dare to believe everything is coming to me in the right way, at the right time, for the right reason, you begin to live with more ease, strength, and peace. You don't need to hold everything in your hands to feel secure. Sometimes you only need to relax, do the right things, keep your mind clean, and let the world guide you where you're meant to be. That's the most powerful state of being, not rushing, not fearing, but trusting yourself, trusting the process, and trusting that the universe is working with you, not against you. And once you've walked through this journey from observing your mind, mastering your reactions, holding your silence, choosing your focus, building discipline, and learning to let go, you'll realize something powerful. Life doesn't change through a single breakthrough moment. It changes through small habits, quiet, steady, and sacred, repeated daily. Each habit is like a small stone you lay down, building a path that leads you home to yourself. But here's the beauty: you don't have to master all of it simultaneously. You only need to start with one and let the rest unfold in time. Because when you live differently, think differently, and choose differently, everything you're seeking begins to move toward you naturally and without force. So pause for a moment, take a deep breath, reflect on the 7 habits you've just walked through, not as a to-do list, but as doorways that now appear before you. The first habit reminds you, stop resisting the flow, for the more you struggle, the further you drift from peace. The second teaches silence is the choice of the strong, not the weak. The third whispers patience isn't delay, knowing the right time. The fourth leads you inward to stay anchored when the outside world shakes. The fifth helps you focus so distractions don't shred your mind. The sixth lays the foundation, discipline, not as punishment, but as genuine self-respect. And the final habit is the summit, trust in the natural flow where everything finds you when you're truly ready. If there's one core lesson, it's this: you don't have to control everything. You only need to change from within, and the rest will begin to shift on its own. Don't strive to be the best version in someone else's eyes. Become the calmest, clearest, most intentional version in your own. Because when you live that way, everything you've been chasing starts coming to you. Not loudly, not forcefully, but quietly, naturally. Like breath. If any part of this awaken something in you, don't let it pass like a temporary burst of motivation. Save it. Please write it down. Start with one small action today. You can share this video with someone you know who needs it, a friend, a loved one, or maybe the version of you from yesterday. Let Sovereign Stoic be the space you return to whenever you need a deeper perspective, a quiet reminder, or a steady hand guiding you back to your inner foundation. Hit subscribe not because we have great content, but because you need a place to listen more deeply to yourself every day. And if you're ready to live with intention, drop a comment below. I choose to relax, do the right thing, and let the world take care of the rest. I'll see you on the next journey. And remember, when you relax, everything you want begins to find you.